those of you that don't know me, my name is Stephanie Herman. I'm the director here at the Union Parish Library. And I think Black History Month, I think we would all say, all of the staff here, is really one of our favorite months of the year. Because, and this is what I tell student groups when I talk to them, I always tell them, this is not Black history, this is our history. You know, this is history, period. And so I love history, and it's something that I really enjoy, looking at the people that have come before us. So in addition to the healthcare heroes that we're going to honor today, there are ghosts among us. And if you look on the exterior of the room, as you came in, and as you look to my right, and look to my left, and as they circle around, these are all pioneers, medical pioneers that have come before us, that have kind of laid the foundation for why we're celebrating the people that are at our podium today. So we have a little brochure I wanted to bring to your attention that each of you should have. It says Medical Miracles. Like I said, I'm a big history nerd, so I want to read some of these to you just briefly to kind of just set the tone for what has come before us here tonight. First, in 1721, a gentleman by the name of Juan Simas, he's only had one name. He was a slave in the New England states, and during the Revolutionary War, he tells his master, who then relayed this on to the commander over the troops, how when he was in Africa, they were already experimenting with inoculation for smallpox. So they brought that concept to the troops, and it made a huge difference in controlling smallpox with the Revolutionary War effort. And that ended up becoming eventually the vaccine, which, how many of you have the smallpox vaccine? By 1972, that was completely eradicated, and that's not necessary. And that's who that idea started with. Dr. James Durham was considered the first medical doctor, African American medical doctor in the United States. He did not have a medical degree, but he practiced in New Orleans, and he had a revolutionary treatment for yellow fever that was then adopted by physicians all over the country. In 1837, Dr. James McCune Smith became the first African American physician, also was a pharmacist, an abolitionist, and an author. In the early 1800s, we began to learn many herbal, plant, and non-plant remedies from African Americans that were slaves. That they brought many of these herbal, holistic medicines here from Africa. In 1864, Dr. Rebecca Lee Crumpler became the first African American female to earn a medical degree as a graduate of the New England Female Medical College in Boston. In 1869, Dr. Robert Tanner Freeman was one of the first 6 graduates ever from Harvard Medical School as a dentist, and he was also the first African American dentist. In 1862, born a slave in Georgia, Susie Baker, who later was known as Susie King Taylor, was the first African American U.S. Army nurse serving in the Civil War. She ended up helping to organize a branch of the Women's Relief Corps, which eventually became the American Red Cross. In 1879, Mary Eliza Mahoney becomes the first African American professional nurse, graduating from the New England Hospital for Women and Children. In 1884, Walter Clement Noel was identified as the first sickle cell proband. He was from the Virgin Islands, and he ended up returning there and actually practiced as a dentist for a period of time. In 1904, Alois Alzheimer, which we know the name Alzheimer's, discovered or identified Alzheimer's disease in the brain. But what you may not know is Dr. Solomon Carter Fuller was one of his 5 graduate students, research graduate students that worked with him, that was an African American. In 1916, Alice Augusta Ball became the first African American chemist, and she developed a treatment for those suffering with Hansen's disease, which was leprosy. In 1927, Dr. William Augustus Hinton developed the Hinton test for diagnosing syphilis, and he later was known for writing the very first medical textbook that was used in medical schools. In 1940, Dr. Charles Drew presents his thesis, Banked Blood, at the Columbia Presbyterian Medical Center. And after experimenting with this model in Europe during World War II, he has been credited with creating what we now use as our blood bank system. In 1948, Percy Julian was a groundbreaking African-American chemist, inventor, and leader, and created essentially the first research laboratory that was headed by an African-American. In 1951, African-American Henrietta Lacks was diagnosed with terminal cervical cancer and treated at Johns Hopkins University, where a doctor took her cells from her cervix without her knowledge. These cells were found to be very unique because of her cancer, they multiplied rapidly. They were then spread out around the country and around the globe, and they are called now the HeLa cells. They are perpetually kept alive, and it is the foundation for much of our medical research. In 1973, Patricia Bath is the first African American to complete a residency in ophthalmology, which led to her appointment years later as the first woman faculty at UCLA's Eye Institute. She then founded the American Institute for the Prevention of Blindness. In 1986, the National Diabetes Group identified that African Americans were twice as likely to have type 2 diabetes than other races. In 1987, Dr. Ben Carson, neurosurgeon, leads a 70-member surgical team at Johns Hopkins Hospital in separating Siamese twins that were conjoined at the cranium. He has authored this book and is a strong advocate of reading. In 1992, Dr. Mae Jemison was the first female astronaut in NASA history and becomes the first black woman in space. But she also had a very successful medical practice. In 1993, Dr. Joyce Helen Elders is the first African American to be appointed as the U.S. Surgeon General of the United States and only the second woman to ever hold the position. She also was credited with creating a juvenile health caucus for the U.S. government. In 2007, Emmett Capel, a renowned NASA biochemist and inventor and holder of 14 U.S. patents, was inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame for his work in bioluminescence. Please join me in saluting these pioneers of our past. Yay, she said. See, she's right. This is a party. So now we want to take time to salute our own heroes, our healthcare heroes that are from our hometown, people that we know, our family members, people that we are proud of. We could have had a long table of people, but we chose a few, and we feel like their story will be representative of many others' stories as well. At this time, we're going to come one by one, and we're going to introduce we'll introduce a speaker, and then the speaker will come up and they'll tell their personal story for a bit, and then we'll have another person will come up and introduce our next speaker. The reason we like to introduce our speakers is because that way they don't have to brag on them. You know, we can brag on them and we can tell their history and their story so they can get to the good stuff. So at this time, I'd like to invite up Judy Lewis, who's going to introduce our first speaker today.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
It is my honor to introduce Dr. Alice Adams, MD, a Farmerville native. She has a private practice in West Monroe. She holds a Bachelor of Science from Southern University MS from University of Washington, and medical degree from Boston University School of Medicine. She is board certified in internal medicine with over 42 years of experience.
So I'm Alice Adams, and many of you know me already, and a lot of you could attest to this early history, but I'm from Farmerville, Louisiana. In the first 12 years of my life, I grew up in what was called the Buckley Quarters. I don't know if it's still called that now, but there was a store at the top of the hill, and that store was the Buckley grocery store. So the communities around that were called the Buckley Quarters, and that's where I spent the first 12 years of my life. I went to Blooming Grove Church along with friends of mine, because that was in the Buckley Quarters there. And my first schooling was at the Union Parish Training School, and that was where the new Willie Davis Recreation Center is. The school was there, and where the recreation center is was where Mr. Bilberry, who was the principal of the school, lived. He and his family. My teachers at that time were Miss Margaret Crawford, Miss Hazel Douglas, Miss Kemp, Miss Fields. They were all elementary school teachers, and if you ever went to one of their classes, by the time you finished elementary school, you had a really good background for going into whatever you wanted to go into. I don't think at that time that I really even thought about what I wanted to do, what I wanted to go into. I was around a lot of teachers. There were a lot of teachers in my family, and I imagined that I thought about being a teacher, because teachers at that time were really respected, and their salaries were good compared to other occupations that black people could do at that time. And remember, this was a time when there was apartheid here in Louisiana and in the whole South. Everything was segregated. The schools were segregated. And I remember at Union Parish Training School, we would always get the older books and the older desk. But I don't think we really even knew the difference. We were around nurturing teachers that really told us that we could do whatever we wanted to do. And the fact that there was segregation and discrimination at the time, I think it just motivated us to do more, to prove that we could do whatever we wanted to do, that there were no barriers on us. And certainly our teachers encouraged that. So when I was 6th grade, I moved to Eastside Junior High. And I remember I had Miss Jonathan as a teacher, and I swear I didn't learn anything. I mean, I learned everything in the 6th grade. I didn't learn anything after that, and everything that I learned after that had some bearing on what Miss Jonathan taught. So, and Eastside was really a very, very good learning institution. There were a lot of different organizations that you could belong to, and clubs, and there was corporal punishment, though. So if you got out of line, you were paddled, and I don't think the parents had any problem with that. But it was a very good learning experience. And again, the teachers were very supportive. We competed on every level in different parishes, and I remember our school doing pretty well in a lot of the competitions that we were in. We went to state levels in a lot of the competitions. And again, even though there was segregation and discrimination at the time, a lot of that probably helped to just propel us to do things that to make our parents proud and make our school proud. There was a lot of positive school spirit at the time. So I graduated from Eastside High School, and many of my classmates are here. So if you want to chime in and say anything, Laura and Charlene Johnson, we were like the three musketeers, Duke and her husband, Nora's husband there. But I graduated valedictorian of the class at Eastside High School, and I remember one of the nights that we, I don't know if it was during graduation times, but a cross was. I remember there was a lot of problems with voting, and I remember when my mother went to vote, and this is something I tell people now and they don't believe it, but she had to actually say parts of the Constitution before she could vote. And if you didn't know, then you couldn't vote. And I remember she would always tell us, you know, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men, to memorize that, because that's what they asked her. And she happened to know it, and that's why she was able to vote. So, you know, a lot of progress has been made, but it was on the backs of a lot of struggling and a lot of sacrifices that people had to make. But anyway, so I graduated from Eastside, and the education I got there was really quite stellar because I was able to go to college and not have much difficulty. I went to Southern, but I remember that I really wanted to go to Dillard. I was accepted at both Southern and Dillard, but at that time, New Orleans had a devastating hurricane, and the city was underwater. I mean, you couldn't go to New Orleans at that time, and so I couldn't go to Dillard, so I had to go to Southern, which was my other choice. And but one other thing I wanted to mention was when I was in high school, the summers, I was blessed to be able to go to what were called summer enrichment programs, and they were at both Southern and Grambling. I went to Grambling one year and Southern the other year. But at those enrichment programs, they taught the sciences. And when I went to the one at Southern, I was able to meet professors there that had PhDs in chemistry. And I had never met a PhD before, and certainly not one in chemistry. So I knew that that's what I wanted to do. That was as high as I thought that you could really go. I mean, I thought. So when I went to Southern, I was going to major in chemistry, and I definitely wanted to get a PhD in chemistry. I knew that that's what I wanted to do. So I went to Southern and studied really hard there. Was able to graduate summa cum laude from Southern, and it was a good social experience there too. If any of you have ever gone to a black college, you know that it's a social experience. I was able to pledge. See my sorors here, AKA, and and I met people there that I saw for the rest of my life, that I have remained friends, and still remain friends now, and they visit me and I visit them. But it was a very good experience at Southern, and I did major in chemistry. So when I finished Southern, I had known a guy there at Southern. His name was Emil Petrie, and he was going to work on a PhD at University of Washington in Seattle. And I had known Emil, and so when he graduated and went to University of Washington in Seattle, I said that's where I wanted to go to do my PhD. So I went to University of Washington, was accepted there. And this was the time when there was a lot of social turmoil. I remember Angela Davis what had happened? She had escaped from somewhere, and everybody was wearing a big afro, and they were, you would be afraid of being mistaken for Angela Davis, and it was really a lot of turmoil, demonstrations, and I belonged to the, at that time, University of Washington had a black student union, and in that black student union were everybody that was black on the campus, so that meant Africans and people from the West Indies. So I was able to meet people from all over the world And that was another learning experience too. I was able to get a master's degree from the University of Washington, and then I met a woman there who was from Boston, and she talked so highly about Boston, and I decided, well, maybe I'll go to Boston, because I'd never been to the East Coast before. So I decided to just do the master's there at University of Washington, and then I applied to a PhD program at Boston University and was accepted there. But now, mind you, all of this moving around and the education was built on the foundation that I got here in Farmerville. I mean, and again, I always remember Miss Johnigan, but it could be any of the teachers I had there, that I can say that I didn't learn anything else after the 6th grade. That was it. But I went on to Boston and worked for a year on a PhD there. But I met other people from Louisiana that were there. I met other people that I'd known at Southern and I'd known through these enrichment programs, but they were all in medical school. So they encouraged me to go to medical school. Well, I had never thought about medical school before, but I knew that graduate school was hard. Graduate school is, and I have a patient of mine that has a son that has a PhD in chemistry, and I just admire him so much, because if you go to graduate school, you're doing research. Well, your research might not pan out. So you could be there for 10 years and not get that PhD, because it depends on your research working out and you writing a dissertation. But medical school is just 4 years. 4 years and you got a degree. So I decided to go to medical school, and like I said, I hadn't thought about going to medical school, and I hadn't thought that I was particularly smart or than anybody else, but I really had to study hard. Knowledge just didn't jump in my head. I had to study really hard. I studied day and night, but I wanted to do well. I wanted my parents to be proud of me. I wanted my community to be proud of me. And I studied hard in every situation that I was in. But so I went to medical school, graduated from medical school, and usually when you graduate medical school, and it's a big day when you finish, you have the match where you want to go do your internship and residencies. And most people will pick a variety of places to do this internship and residency, because I don't know why they choose certain places, but I only wanted to go to one hospital. And I thought if I don't go there, then I don't know where I would have gone, but I just picked one, and that was Harlem Hospital. I was so engrossed with Black history and Black culture that I wanted to be around places that people had been in the Harlem Renaissance. I wanted to be where Langston Hughes was. I just wanted to be in Harlem. So I did get accepted at Harlem Hospital, and I went there and did my internship and residencies. And I was in New York at a time when it was really hopping then, like Studio 54. I was able to go there, and I love jazz, so jazz clubs. I was out, jazz clubs, Broadway plays, parties at the UN. So I was able to really have the New York experience. But again, a lot of the things that I learned about Harlem, I learned from programs like this, where we talked about Black history. We did all the Langston Hughes poems. We sang the Negro National Anthem when we before school programs and stuff. When we did the national anthem, we sang the Negro National Anthem as well. So all of that experience in Harlem and the things I saw, it made sense to me. And at Harlem Hospital, they had a auditorium there where any day you might see a jazz great in the auditorium just playing for free, like Miles Davis or Herbie Hancock, or, you know, you might just see them down there playing, because they would come through. If they were at another place, they'd jam at Harlem Hospital at lunchtime. So it was really a good experience for me. When I graduated, when I finished there, did internship and residencies there, I wanted to come home again. So I decided to go to New Orleans to do a cardiology fellowship, and was accepted at the Tulane program there. And I did a fellowship at Tulane, but I was basically at the VA hospital where I did most of my training. And it was a very, very good experience, as you can imagine. I saw a lot of sickness and stuff in New Orleans, but that was a 3-year program, and I was the chief resident after my 2nd year. And when I finished that program, I went back to Boston and opened a private practice, where I did private practice there for about 17 years before coming back here. And I've been back here about 15 years. But I came back because my family was getting older, and I just wanted to be home with them. But I think that, you know, in this time span, I've traveled all over the world, just about. But I can truthfully say that that it feels good being home, and you know, in a place where my thirst for knowledge first started, and that I can really see what a difference being in this environment meant. And a lot of times we take those things for granted, but being back home, I can say that I don't miss anything about the city or anything, because everything I really wanted is here. I'm able to practice my profession here, so I have meaningful work. I'm around family and friends, and I can, you know, still search for enlightenment here. So I'm not, there's nothing that I miss about being in other cities, that everything I really wanted in life is right here. And that everything that I've attained in life, that I can definitely attribute to training that I got right here in Farmerville, Louisiana. So, thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. It is with great honor that I introduce this next speaker. Dr. DeMarquise Lord is a native of Spearsville, Louisiana. He is the son of Shawana Lord and Glenn Hurd. He is the grandson of Judy Brock and the late Robert Brock, and also the grandson of Irvin and Bertha Hurd. He graduated from El Dorado High School in 2003 with honors. He earned his bachelor's degree in biology in 2007 from the University of Arkansas Fayetteville. During his time at U of A, he was very active on campus. He was initiated into the Kappa Kappa chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. He earned his bachelor's degree in biomedical science in 2010 from Midwestern University in Downers Grove, Illinois. From there, he went on to pursue his degree in dentistry from the historic Meharry Medical College, where he graduated in 2014 with his doctorate of dental surgery. He completed a general practice residency at Louisiana State University for Health Sciences, New Orleans in 2015. Currently, he practices general dentistry at Aspen Dental as managing clinical director. At this time, I am just thrilled. I'm just excited. I am hippo happy. I am hippo happy. I am elephant elated. Introduce my nephew.
Good evening. I didn't prepare any remarks. remarks, so I'm just going to kind of go off the top of my head about a little bit about me and where I come from. So, my name is Dr. DeMarquise Lloyd. I am from Spearsville, Louisiana, originally. A proud, native of Union Parish. I went to school in Union Parish from about kindergarten to 5th grade here, and this is really where I got my start and where I learned manners and just everything that was going to prepare me for life ahead. I remember being in 3rd grade. Miss Ferguson was my 3rd grade teacher. I was thinking about this. She was probably one of the first teachers who actually challenged me and kind of got my creative juices flowing as a student. I remember she used to make us have a spelling list, and we had to write these stories with all the words on the list. And so I would make up these elaborate, crazy stories, and she would just be too entertained. I also probably was known as a rambunctious kid in elementary. I remember I was the subject of some corporal punishment myself, so I don't think I told my mama that. But I really got my start here, and I really enjoyed my time in Union Parish. Around 6th grade, we moved to El Dorado, so I continued my education in El Dorado from 6th grade till I graduated from high school. And during that time, I really became serious about school, and it was evident to me that I wanted to find a passion for what I wanted to do in life. I remember being in, I think it was about 7th grade, was when we had a class called Career Orientation, and so we were challenged to research a occupation and find out everything you could about that occupation and really kind of narrow down some things that you thought you could see yourself doing. And so at that time, I researched a lot of things, and I came up with that I wanted to be a physician. So that's what I initially started out wanting to do. And mainly because I enjoyed helping people. I knew that was something that I loved to do, take care of people. I'm not gonna lie. I saw the salary, so I was like, that's something I can do too. I did, and basically I just kind of started from there, researching the field, putting myself in positions to shadow doctors and learn more on my own. And I graduated high school in 2003. I was in the not valedictorian, but I was up there. I was in the top 5%, so I did pretty well. And I ended up going to the University of Arkansas Fayetteville, where I majored in biology. And so that was, let's just say, it was a very fun time. I definitely enjoyed college. I did pretty much everything I wanted to do. And my grades showed it a little bit. So I did not graduate at the top of my class in college, but I did graduate with a decent GPA. However, at the U of A, it was an institution where it's called a predominantly white institution. And so I think the time I was there, we had about 6% black population. And so there wasn't a lot of black people, but pretty much everybody who was there in the black community knew each other, and so it was a very close-knit community. But during that time, I was a part of things like the Pre-Med Society, in addition to other organizations on campus. However, I did not feel like the Pre-Med Society necessarily invested enough time and interest in the students. It was kind of like more of an independent thing. There was no one there to kind of nurture you and teach you more about what it takes to get into the field. And so I left the U of A with a decent GPA. Like I said, I took the MCAT my senior year with all intentions of going to med school the next year. I did terrible. So I had to shift gears a little bit, but I took a year off after undergrad, basically to just kind of focus on studying for the MCAT, and so I was working and studying for the MCAT to get a better score. And so during that time, I thought I knew what it meant to be broke, but I learned what it meant to be broke after undergrad when I was working and all my paycheck was going at the end of the month. And so I was working as a bank teller at first, and I really enjoyed my job as a bank teller, but again, living paycheck to paycheck, you always want to seek more opportunities to make more if you can. So I ended up going to be a collector in a collections agency, and that was the worst job I ever had, and was not very happy with it. So I knew I wanted to go back to school after that. I took the MCAT again during that year. Did not necessarily get the score that I wanted, so I ended up seeking other opportunities to get back into school and that sort of thing. So Dr. Melissa Walker Rayford, a lot of people may know her from, she's from this community as well, but she was pretty much like a mentor and a bonus aunt to me, and she kind of guided me along the process of getting back in school. So I applied to the medical school that she went to, and I got waitlisted. And so once I found out I was waitlisted, she put me in contact with the dean of the medical school, and I was able to have a conversation with her on the phone. And after that conversation, she pretty much offered me a spot in the grad school class. Normally you have to take a test for that, but she was just like, based off your MCAT, you can just come on and go to school, and if you meet these certain requirements during this year, we'll let you into the medical class for the next year. So I did that, and went to Chicago, quit my job, put all my clothes in the back seat, didn't have a place to live, and basically slept on a friend's couch for about a week or two until I was able to find a place, and I call that my faith move, because that's all that sustained me at that point. I knew I had to do something, so went up there, and I was in the program, and I really had to make some big adjustments from college, because in college I was able to probably study a week before the exam and do pretty good, not so much in grad school. So I had to kind of buckle down and make sure I stayed on top of my studies and adjust my study habits. But during that time I also kind of lost my passion for pursuing medicine, because I was taking the same 4 classes as med students, and the more I learned about the process of going through medical school, and like she said, you have the match, and so basically how I felt about it was, you go through 4 years of medical school, and what type of doctor you become kind of comes down to 1 or 2 tests, board exams, based on some scores. That's how I saw it. And so I did not want to be cornered into doing something, being a type of doctor I didn't want to be. And so I started researching some other fields. And in high school I had researched many fields, and I shadowed other health professions, nurses, dentists. But somebody spoke, I was talking to a friend, and basically they asked me had I thought about pursuing dentistry. And I was like, I hadn't really given it any serious thought. And then I started researching the field, basically, and I found out that it had a little more freedom in your day-to-day life. You could get to set your own schedule. It still allowed me to do what I wanted to do, which was take care of people and, care for people in that way. But it gave me a little more freedom and an opportunity to have a life outside of work. And so I did, from that point I pursued dentistry, and I literally took the test 6 months before, like people started applying to medical school and dental school like a year ahead of time. I started that process like 6 months before the class was supposed to start. And so I took my, I remember I left home for Christmas. I took my test January the 4th, and I had an interview, had a couple interviews. One was at Louisville, Kentucky, and one was in Meharry. And basically, I got the score I needed the first time, and so for me that was kind of like, wow, like that happened so quickly, whereas the MCAT it did not. And so I ended up having those interviews, and everything went well for both interviews. I ended up getting waitlisted at Louisville, and literally 2 months after I interviewed at Meharry, I got my acceptance letter. So everything just kind of lined up, and so I took that as that, that's what I was supposed to be doing. And so I knew I wanted to go to an HBCU after being at University of Arkansas and Midwestern, because I was tired of being like the only one that looked like me in most of my classes. And so I was like, I'm trying to get some culture, get back with my people, and feel, you know, have a different experience. And so when I interviewed at Meharry, I tell the story, it was just a good day. I walked in, I had never seen black dentists before, I had never seen black physicians, so it was just, you know, great to see that and know that they were out there and investing in people that looked like me. And so for me, I was like, you know, the chicken was well seasoned at lunch, it was sweet, and so I was like, yeah, this feels good. And so I ended up going to Meharry, and it was one of the best experiences of my life. I met a lot of people, and I have, you know, a vast network of colleagues that I can rely on and refer to in certain situations. So I'm very, very happy about that. Currently, well, like Lon said, I went to, I did a residency at LSU in New Orleans, and basically during that time it was just kind of honing my skills and basically learning how to work with patients who were getting ready for big procedures like surgery. So we had to basically learn how to deal with medically compromised patients. And so that taught me a lot during that time. I was really able to, like I say, hone my skills and get better at what I was doing. After that, I had my first job. I worked with kids in my first job, so it was a small pediatric practice. And I learned that I didn't like that very quickly. So, I like kids. I just like, you know, really well-behaved kids. So I did that for about a year, and until I am where I am now in Russellville, working mostly with adults. I still see some kids, but basically, I love what I do. It allows me to, you know, relieve pain for people who, you know, have no solutions for why they're experiencing what they're experiencing. I'm able to restore smiles to people who haven't smiled in a long time. So that's really gratifying to be able to do that and so into people's lives that way. So I don't have very much else to say after that, but that's pretty much my story.
Good evening, everyone. I am honored to introduce this person. He's the son of my classmate, Dr. Michael Gadsden, a native of Union Parish, the son of Michael Gadsden and Linda Gadsden Singleton. Reared in the small town of Spiritual and currently resides in Bowery, Maryland. He serves as the director of a mental health clinical center in the Virginia, Maryland healthcare system. Dr. Gadsden is involved in the treatment of service members and veterans with chronic combat-related post-traumatic stress disorder, also known as PTSD. He has a bachelor's degree in psychology from Northwestern University, a master's in social work from Grambling State University, and a PhD in psychology from Walden University. He has published in several professional journals and has published a new book entitled Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep. Immediately after this program, we will have the reception in the meeting room. In there, Dr. Gadsden will be doing his book signing. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Dr. Michael D. Gadsden.
So, I'm happy to be here. I've been traveling all day to be here with you all tonight from the D.C. area. So, I got my start in Union Parish. I grew up in Sweet Union Baptist Church, and then we moved to the Lockhart community, where I went through kindergarten through high school in Union Parish. Oh. It's gonna be like this. Okay, so this is better? Everybody can hear me? Okay. All right. So, like I said, I went through grade school, middle school, high school in Union Parish, and I got my foundation in the school system like everybody else has said as well. And I'm glad to see a lot of my teachers here. Miss Mildred, Miss Calloway, Miss Darnell. Miss Wicker's not here, but she was the one who made me read a lot. And that's where I got the foundation of reading and the love for reading, where we would read 2 to 3 books on a regular basis like it was nothing. Some of the books that I remember is Crossing the Switchblade, To Kill a Mockingbird. So those are some of my favorite books. Little backstory. So I started therapy when I was around 15 or 16. My mom put me in therapy because I was very outspoken. And we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things, so she put me in counseling. And so I started counseling, and I remember my counselor name. Her name was Miss Wade, and I think she was from Union Parish as well. And I was seeing her, and she said, I need to get you somebody else, because I was telling her, I can do your job. And I was asking her, how did you get here? What did you do? What education did you receive? So she was like, I need to get you another therapist. She transferred me to another therapist, which was Mr. Derek Slate. So I am an advocate for therapy because I wouldn't be where I am today if I wasn't in therapy in high school. So graduated Spiritual with honors. My mom gave me a choice: military, college, or you go to work. And I said, I don't want to work. My mouth is too sharp to go to the military right now. So college it is. So my sister went to Louisiana Tech, and so my mom was always popping up, checking on her at Louisiana Tech. So the rest of us had a rule: we need to at least go 2 to 3 hours away so she can't pop up on us. So that's how I ended up at Northwestern State University in Anchorage, because she used to have to schedule visits to come see me. So she didn't make that many trips. So I got a chance to do what I wanted to do while I was at Northwestern. But when I started Northwestern, I majored in finance because, like Marquise was saying, I was told that I wasn't going to make any money if I went into a helping field. So I started out in finance, tried to get some internships back in Union Parish. I got a lot of no's. So I ended up in Ohio doing 2 internships in finance. After my last summer, I was just like, I can't do this, doing numbers all day. Just, it's not the life I wanted. So I came back to undergrad after my internship, and I majored in psychology. And started that route because, again, I had been in therapy since I was 16, so I can do this. So I started in psychology. My last year, I took a class with Dr. Powell. He was a social work professor, and he was just encouraging me that I needed to major in social work because we needed more African American men in social work. I was like, what's the pay? He was like, you can write your ticket. You're a male. So I was like, okay. So, and at that time, my stepdad had died from a massive stroke, and so I needed to move back closer to home to help my mom with my last 2 siblings. And so I moved back, and I went to Grambling State University, and I majored in social work. So after that, I took a job in Arkansas, where I see some of my coworkers in here. I was a school therapist, and I worked in several schools: Parker's Chapel, Strong, Smackover. And so I did that for a while, and one of the schools I was at the most was Strong, and the superintendent was getting ready to leave, Mr. Luss. And he was a big advocate for me being in the school system, and I was like, you're leaving? What am I gonna do? I'm leaving too. So I took a job in Baton Rouge working for the state as a crisis social worker, and at that time it was after Hurricane Katrina. So what we were doing is going into the homes and working with people who had paranoid schizophrenia, bipolar, and so it was a real high-risk job where I had to have a security guard go with me into the homes. Got burned out on that job really fast, so I took a job at LSU Medical School in Shreveport, and I was the director of trauma intervention, where I would go into the patient rooms and do an assessment on why were they in the trauma center. And then we try to figure out how can we get them to prevent them coming back into the center. Well, the state was going through a lot of budget cuts. Lost my job twice. My boss was like, don't leave town. We're going to get you a job. So he was able to bring me back, but I heard they was going to do some cuts again. So I said, I got to get out of here. I applied for several jobs in the state. I could not get hired. So I applied for some jobs outside of the state, and I got 12 job offers. So I left and went to Wichita, Kansas. Reason is because that was the closest to Louisiana. In case I needed to get home, I could drive home. All other places like Montana, places I really didn't want to be. I didn't want to be in Wichita, Kansas, but it was a federal job, so I went to Wichita, Kansas, and I said, I'm going to stay here until I get established. I stayed in Wichita, Kansas for 3 years, and then after that, I moved to D.C. area and took a job at the D.C. VA Medical Center. I worked that position for 3 years, and then after that, I applied for a new position because at that time I was getting ready to graduate my PhD. I said, okay, well, I don't have any more excuses why I'm still in this position, so I said it's time to elevate myself. So I started applying for positions, and that's how I'm in my current position, where I run an outpatient clinic and I have therapists up under me. So that's my story.
I guess you're wondering, everybody else that introduce somebody, they work at the library. Why is she up here? Well, first of all, I'm a part of the library board. And I was in one day, and Miss Stephanie said, Miss Brown, we're getting ready for our program, and I need you to introduce someone. I said, who? She said, Ashley Glosson. I said, oh, yeah. Here I am. I said, that's my great niece. I'm ready for it. So I just can't tell you how happy I am to have the privilege to introduce Ashley. If my mom was here, she'll say, sit down, baby. I'll do it. But Ashley Glosson Lancaster is a 29-year-old native of Farmville, Louisiana. Miss Lancaster has one daughter, Kennedy Glosson, and she was recently married to a handsome husband over there, Kenson Lancaster from Shreveport, Louisiana. Her passion for education began at a young age. Throughout grade school and high school, Ashley maintained a 4.0 grade point average, and after graduating 1 year early from Farmville High School in 2007, she received academic scholarships to attend university and the University of Louisiana in Monroe, which she received a Bachelor of Science in Nursing degree. She's a member of the Sigma Theta Thar International Honor Society of Nurses and Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, and I see a lot of her soror sisters here, Incorporated. Ashley practiced as a certified critical care registered nurse throughout the country as a travel nurse. Her areas of expertise include a neurosurgical, cardiothoracic, and vascular intensive care units. Ms. Lancaster recently graduated from Texas Wesleyan University with a Master's of Science in Nurse Anesthesia. She currently practices as a certified registered nurse anesthetist, CRNA, at Baylor, Scott, and White in Fort Worth, Texas. She's proud of her success as a woman of today. Ashley is the first female African American CRNA from Farmerville. One of her favorite quotes was stated by the former First Lady Michelle Obama. You should never view your challenges as a disadvantage. Instead, it's important that you understand that your experience facing and overcoming adversities is actually one of your biggest advantages. Ashley believes that it's very important to invest in yourself, your future, your education. Your education is something that can't be taken away from you. Even though I read this and Ashley graduated from high school in 2007, Ashley's first graduation happened on Saturday, May the 21st, 1994, when she graduated from West Street Daycare. She was among the top scholars at West Street Daycare. And again, I'm so happy to introduce Ashley.
Okay. I am not a public speaker, but I'm going to try. When I was asked to do this, I said, okay, I'll try, in order to give back to my community. But public speaking is not my area. If anybody's had anesthesia, we are like behind the curtain and invisible. That's me. But anyway, I'm from here in Farmerville. I got my upbringing here in Union Parish. Like my aunt said, my education started at West Street Daycare. I can remember so much about that. If any of you guys went there, I can remember getting in the station wagon in the summers, going up to the high school cafeteria and eating. They taught us so much about pride and being black and being proud of where you're from. Black history, I think I learned more about black history at that daycare than I was taught anywhere else. Like she said, I graduated from Farmerville High School a year early. I spent some summers with Miss Deborah Kay doing AHEC. And because I wanted to work in the health field, but I just wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I did AHEC in the summers, and I was able to work with doctors, nurses, CNAs, everybody in the health field. And I was like, I know this is what I want to do, but I still wasn't certain. So I'm like a numbers person. I was like, okay, what can I go to school for so I can have a good life? I want to make good money. I don't want to work long hours, that kind of thing. So I went to ULM originally. I thought I wanted to be a pharmacist. I was like, oh, I can just push some little pills and I can make 6 figures a year. This is what I want to do. But I quickly saw that I was like, oh no, that's boring. You don't really get to talk to your patients. No disrespect to any pharmacist. But I was like, no, I don't think that's for me. I like to talk to people, I like to interact. I like to feel like I'm making a change. So I switched to nursing, which I love. But also, I was like, what can I do? I like challenges. I like to have fun. So I started travel nursing. I travel nursed for a few years, and then I came back home, and I was working at Glenwood. And I always knew that I wanted to go to anesthesia school. After I chose going to nursing, I knew that that was eventually what I wanted to do. But I kept putting it off, and putting it off, and putting it off, and putting it off. Because I guess I'll give you some background on the field. It's about 57,000 CRNAs in the United States. 10% of those being minorities, and 1% of those being black. So black women, even less than that. So I just kind of felt like, I'm just a little girl from Farmerville, that's not an achievable goal, and I hate rejection. So I was scared. I don't want to apply yet because I don't want to get rejected. Well, another native from here, Enza, we worked together at Glenwood, and she knew what I wanted to do, and, she kept telling me, oh, Texas Wesleyan, their application process closes in October. I was like, oh, no, I'm just going to apply next year, I'll apply next year. And, it was maybe 1 month. I think it was sometime in September that year. And she was like, have you did it yet? And I was like, no, I'm just going to wait till next year because, I had so many excuses. I wanted to do this and I wanted to do that. I hadn't taken the GRE yet, and that was something that you had to do. And she was like, oh no, you're going to take it, you're going to do this, you're going to, submit it on this application session. So I actually did. I don't think I had met anyone who had tried to go to CRNA school and got in on the first time, so I never even thought I was going to get in. I was like, if I get in, that's good, but I'm not gonna get my hopes up. I know what to do, you know, to try again next year. So they actually contacted me and told me that I had an interview. I was like, oh my goodness, okay, I have an interview again. So I went for the interview, and you sit among a panel, like at a table here, and they kind of ask you clinical questions. They ask you challenging questions to see, you know, what you know. They ask you personal questions. How do you cope with stress? All kinds of things. It's pretty tough. So I left there. It was like, my interview was like at 9 in the morning. When I left, I was like looking on my phone, where can I go get a margarita at? It was like an hour of just interrogation. I was so stressed. So I found like a little hole-in-the-wall Mexican place around the corner from the university. And I'm sitting there drinking a margarita, and I looked down on my phone, and I received a message that I had got accepted. And I was like, oh my God, you know, like I was so shocked. It was, you know, I cried, went through so many emotions. Fast forward, I get to school, and it's a big auditorium. It was about 125 of us. And I looked around, I was like, wow. So there's 5 black people here and 2 black women. But got done. I finished in December. Thank God. It's over. I just started my career. I'm currently at Baylor right now in Fort Worth. And another story that I kind of want to tell about just being African American and just kind of having so many cards stacked against you sometimes. Like I did my training at LSU in Shreveport and worked hard. We worked over like 65 hours a week, 12 hours, Monday through Friday, weekend call, always there. It's a level 1 trauma center. It's intensive. If you can work there, you can work anywhere in the country. I got married. My husband's from Shreveport. So we were like, okay, yeah, I want to stay in Shreveport. So I originally applied for a job there. Well, I had 2 other classmates who were from Shreveport, but they were white males. The first one that got a job, I was like, okay, yeah, he's a good worker. He's a safe person to choose. If I was an employer, I would have chosen him as well. Well, the second person that they hired, I'll just say, when they were making assignments in the morning, the CRNAs would argue about who was going to have him because nobody wanted to have him. You know, it was like that. And he was very confrontational. It was, you know, so I was like, wow, it was kind of like a spit in the face, you know, like why did he get chosen over me? So they received their notifications that they got a job, but no one ever told me that I didn't get the job. So my classmates were like, oh yeah, you know, the chief told us not to tell you, but I'm going to tell you because you're my classmate. They didn't want, you know, they didn't want any problems or any of that. So it took them almost 2 weeks to tell me that I didn't have the job. But I already knew, you know. Part of it, I think, because I'm black. Most of it because I'm a woman, though in that field, it's kind of male-dominant. So I said, okay, well, I have to apply for jobs other places. So that's how we ended up in Fort Worth. But God always puts you where he wants you to be because I love my coworkers. I love my job. Everybody's so great, so amazing. LSU actually backdoored, apologized to me, offered me a job, but I politely turned it down. And yeah, not going there. But you know, we're happy, and I came here also to represent for like younger black women coming from this parish. You know, you don't always have somebody to look up to see that it's something beyond this. I feel like so many people have so many dreams. When we were in school, so many people wanted to do so many things, and then I don't know what caused it, either out of fear or lack of support or finances or whatever. So many people end up staying and not being able to fulfill those dreams. So I just want to let women know that you can do anything that you set your mind to.
Good evening. Today, this evening, it is my distinct honor to introduce to you my friend, my sister, a woman whose heart and spirit truly inspires me every day. And that's Jaime Brown. Jaime Brown is the daughter of Miss Lula Brown, and they're both natives of Farmville, Louisiana. She attended Farmville Elementary, middle, and high school. And and she still lives here, so there you go. After graduating in 2004, she attended Southern University for 1 year, but she graduated from Northwestern State University in 2008 with a BS in psychology and a minor in substance abuse. While in high school, and this came as no surprise to me, she was Miss Farmville High School, the president of National Honor Society and Student Government Association, prom queen, and she also graduated with honors as number 8 in her class. I'm so proud of you, Jaime. Jaime works several jobs, and she loves every bit of it. Some days don't know how many she works in one day. She works full-time with me as the Drug-Free Communities Project Coordinator with UACT. And as I told my executive director, I said, you can afford to lose me, but you cannot afford to lose Jaime Brown. She's the Teen Outreach Coordinator at Union Parish Library under the direction of Stephanie Herman, where she's worked since graduating college. She's also a contract worker at Union General Hospital as one of the community outreach coordinators with It's a Girls Thing, Making Proud Choices and Drug Prevention Program under the supervision of Claudia Wade. And she also works part-time at Union Station as a licensed driver's ed instructor with Mrs. Bridget Fulton. If you can imagine, she has time. Jaime is a proud member of the Grambling Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and is a member of the Union Black Heritage Committee. Her biggest accomplishment in life, she says, is being a leader and mentoring the youth in our community, of which we have examples of that even in this room, who you have touched their lives. Jaime enjoys speaking at local churches, spending time with her family, her 6 godchildren, and thankfully her friends. She is the founder of the Co-Red Scholarship that she created with her sister, friend, and mentor, Lakeisha Gray Carey, who's a native of Bernice. They have blessed 6 young ladies in our community with the help of our families, friends, and community supporters, and they plan to carry this on as long as they both live. Jaime's motto in life is to be the change you want to see in your community, your parish, your state, and your world. Please join me in welcoming Miss Jaime Brown.
Story's a little different. I love school. You know, I've been in school since I started with it 4. And I always like, man, I'm tired of school. Like, you know, I did well, but I really had to study. I really had to focus and, you know, just do it every day, you know. And my mom, she pushed me. She pushed me to the point that I was just like, oh, you know, in high school we bump heads a lot. People don't believe it now because we're like kindred spirits and, you know, best friends, sisters, you know. But in high school was tough. You know, I caused her a lot of trouble. But she recently told me that I redeemed myself, so I'm grateful. When I went to Southern because I didn't want to apply anywhere else. I was just like, Southern it is. I don't want to go to Grambling, I want to go to Tech. You know, and I felt like it was so close. You know, it was like, it's right here. You know, she going to be always in my grill, you know. So I was like, I'm going to go to Southern. And of course she was like, you know, I'm not going to make you go anywhere. I want you to go where you want to go. You will learn. You know, but she wanted me to apply to other colleges. And I did, you know. But I got to Southern and I was like, what? It was so far away. I can remember standing in the window watching her and my cousin Tara drive away, and I was like, I was just like, I can't do these things. I need that woman, you know. And it got to the point where she was like, girl, you need to find you some friends out there. We call it like every day. I remember like, I think at the time like the ringtone was like a Robin Thicke song, and my sister was like, we so tired of hearing that ringtone because you call here every hour. But I just missed home, you know. I was just like, I thought I was gonna be a big girl and, you know, and stay. But I really, like at Southern, I learned a lot, but that was my first experience of being like, what I say, I failed, you know. I graduated with honors, and I went to Southern with a 3.8 GPA, and I just was like, I never failed a class before. You know, so I was like, oh, I got this, you know. My mama, she wanted admitted, but she didn't want me to drop a class, and I didn't drop it, and I failed it. So they placed me on academic probation, and I was there like, lost my scholarship, and it was just like, what am I doing? Like, I can't go on like this. So I started like saying, I need to move around. I gotta leave here, it's too far, I need my people, you know, and I just need the stability that I had in Union Parish, in Formerville, you know. Everybody, you know, was your teachers, you know. I went to summer school every summer at Blooming Grove Baptist Church. Miss Adams and Miss Crawford and all those ladies were there just to teach us. We did programs and everything, and I just needed that. I didn't have that so far away, and I really needed that. But I didn't want to come. I didn't want to come like so far, you know, so close. So I went to Northwestern. Really because my best friend was there, and that was the first time that we was like apart. So I went to Northwestern, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do. As you can see by my bio, I'm kind of all over the place. So I've always been a busybody. I've always been all over the place, and I decided at Northwestern that I was going to major in psychology because I like people, and I'm curious, and I just want to know, like, what's going on? What are you doing? How do you do that? How do you get this? You know, why do you do that? Why do you act like that? You know, so I was just a curious kid, and I'm still curious now. So I got my bachelor's in psychology, and I did not want to come back to Formerville. But I came back, and here I was just I didn't do anything for about, 9 months. I told my mom, I said, I've been in school since I was 4. I don't want to do anything. I just want to, you know, do nothing, you know. That didn't last long. So, because I just couldn't be still. So, at the time, I still didn't know what I really wanted to do, you know. Miss Stewart, Miss Sharon Stewart was my elementary school principal, and she's like, I want you to go in education, you could be a teacher, I'll pay for your books, I'll pay for whatever. And I was just like, no. I had a talk with God, and I said, Lord, at this point, I'll do just about anything, but I know what I don't want to do. I don't want to work with kids. Whatever you do not put me with kids. Not me. I don't really like kids. You know, I was just like, no. Well, God laughed. And God said, okay, I'm going to show you, but I can tell you. So every job that I do, literally, I work with kids. And I love it. I absolutely love it. I love seeing my little babies back there. I love it. I can't see myself doing anything else. But I do work in prevention. I work at the hospital with Miss Claudia, and how I got into that, I was working at the health and y'all, my resume, oh my God, I've worked like several different types of jobs, and working at Walmart was like that first experience of like real world, and I was like, no. Like my mom, she worked at Walmart 29.5 years, and she was like, if you don't work at Walmart, you're going to be in home office making the big money. Don't be working down here, you know, in the little stores. But I did. I told God, and I did tell God. I was like, I'm going to work here for 2 years. I can't stay here, because, no. And I left like the day before my 2-year anniversary, and I went to the health unit, and there I was working with a program called Healthy Start, and I worked with pregnant women. And when I first, accepted the job, I was like, okay, pregnant women, okay, well, they're pregnant, so the kid's not really here. I think I can do this, you know. I was just like, I think I can do this, you know. Well, when I got my job description, it said I would be working with women 13 to 44. And I was like, 13? Like, nah, that's not a woman, And believe it or not, well, yeah, my first group of clients were all at, Walmart High School. And it absolutely broke my heart. I was just like, oh my God, like, I don't really remember like a lot of girls when I was in high school that were pregnant, maybe 1 or 2. But that year, which was 2012, yeah, no, 2012, I had like 16 girls on my program that were pregnant, and the program, you would stay, when you find out you're pregnant, you would stay till your child turned 3. Well, like 5 of the girls didn't even get to the point of aging out because they got pregnant again. So I was just like, oh Lord, like I gotta do something. I'm the kind of person, I love to feel needed. I love to help people. I just love to hit the ground running, you know. But I always wanted to leave, you know. I just feel like my personality, my mouth, I was just too big for Formerville. I was like, you know, Formerville kind of quiet. People, you know, it's like a retirement, you know, parish, you know. And I was like, I'm loud. I need to leave, you know. So I would always talk about leaving. I always talk about it. And my pastor, Vincent Butler, he was like, what you running from? And I was like, I'm not running from anything. I'm running to something, you know. And he was like, well, you know, by that time, it had been, 5, 6 years, and he was like, you hadn't left yet, so something keeping you here. So I had that talk with God, and I was like, God, like, with everybody else leaving, you know, people around me leaving, my best friend left, you know, people younger than me left, you know, and I was like, why I can't leave? Like, am I not good enough to leave? Am I not going to make it when I do leave? Like, what's the deal? And, God was just like, I got something better, you know. And from that experience and that talk with God, I realized that my heart is here in Union Parish. You know, I would love to be, you know, a doctor one day, you know. But I just know that I need to be down here in what people say the trenches. I need to be right here so that my teens can grow up to be doctors and nurses and dentists. You know, I want them to be able to say, it was because of Miss Hyman, you know, and that's my story, y'all.
What I'd like to do next, we're going to kind of switch the program around just a little bit. Girls, y'all can come on up. I want y'all to be thinking, we'd like to have a follow-up question for each of our panelists. So if you all have a question, kind of be thinking about what that is. But we're going to do something else while y'all are thinking, and then that way, as time allows toward the end, we'll just allow the rest of the program to be our question and answers. At this time, we want to recognize all of our healthcare heroes in our parish. We selected a few, but there are so many. And there are probably, honestly, some that we did not include, but we made the effort. We sent letters to, Joanne Bugg sends letters to all of the churches in the area. We had it on our Facebook page, trying just to identify all the people in our parish who are African American, but who served or have served in healthcare. And at this time, we would like to basically read their names and honor them as well. So if you're in the room, we'd like for you to stand if you call your name. And then at the end, we'll have a round of applause for all of them. We have over here on this wall, this glass wall, we tried to put their names on our Healthcare Heroes wall. All of our panelists are there, and all the people that are in our program names are on our wall as well. The students that are going to be reading the names are with Jaime's program, the UAC program in Mary. And they represent student ambassadors from Farmerville High School. They represent and mentor exactly what a student should be. And one of the reasons we did this program tonight in the first place is that, just like Ashley had said earlier, is that we want all of our students to know that they can be anything that they want to be. These 3 ladies represent that. So please come up and I'll let y'all take over.
Starting with Zion Hill Baptist Church, Reverend Tommy Carr, pastor. Picking Island, CNA, who's retired. Joanne Jones, CNA, who's retired. Brenda Lloyd, LPN. Calandria Pinchback, LPN. Linda M. Singleton, CNA. Misty Wallace, RN. Jermica Wallace, CNA. Brandon Wright, PhD. Gentle Hands Ministry, Reverend Vincent Butler, pastor. Linda Sue Cleveland, CNA, who's retired. Evan Brown, CPT. Jaime Brown, CP. Bernice Gray, RN. Wanda Sue McGuire, CNA, who's retired. Misty G. Morgan, LPN, MDS coordinator. Christ Centered Ministries, Reverend Michael Singleton, pastor.
Shiki Dixon, ST, Ensa Smith Grisby, RN, Debbie Hill, RN, Sharon Jones, CNA, Cornitra Moore, Dialysis Tech, LaShann Nation, CNA, Deneen Tony, LMSW.
From the Bernice area, we have Linda Coleman, LPN, Carla Elliott, LPN, Angela Hay, LPN, Phyllis Hopkins, LPN, Diwanitra Hill, RN, Dorothea Hull, LPN, Vicki Jones, LPN, Eunice Lee, LPN, Eva Lee, LPN, Gwen Lee, retired LPN, Maddie Lee, LPN, Gladys McNeil, retired PT, Melissa Neal, social worker, Iva Jean Nicholson, LPN, Sherry Nicholson, RN, Rosie Payne, RN. From the Farmerville area, we have Alice Adams, PhD, Quintessa Boyd, RN, Rose Ann Boyd, CNA, Bernicia Braggs, RN, Anaya Birch, CNA, Alicia Carr, phlebotomist, Kimberly Dixon, RN, Robin P. Dixon, LPN, Edwin Everett, MD, Chandra Fields, RN, Diane Finley, retired LPN, Ashley Glosson, CRNA, Kayla H. Hill, LPN, Lucy Hill, Dialysis Tech, Naomi Hill, LPN, Chandriqua Hill, X-Ray Tech, Rosie Hogue, CNA, Amanda Johnson, PTA, Krishana Johnson, LPN, Christy Jones, Social Worker, Fabian Tate Lewis, Lab Tech, Tammy Lloyd, Dialysis Tech, Fantasia Nation, LPN, Patsy Page, MLS, Heather Parson, RN, Chelsea Patrick, LPN, Cambry Phillips, LPN, Yolanda Robinson, CNA, Christy Rose, LPN, Jasmine Ross, LPN, Brianna H. Smith, LPN, Carla Sims, Social Worker, Latanya Stringfellow, CNA, Ruthie Tate, retired CNA, Ashley Wallace, RN, and Diane Warren, MT.
From the spiritual area, we have Angela D. Bradford, LPN, Joya Creer, GYN, Carolyn Creer, RX, Abby Cloud, SW, Melba Dismute, CNA, Frenchie W. Gatson, SW, Hobby Gatson, X-ray Technician, Michael D. Gatson, PhD, Janet Hurd, FMP, Lakeel Hurd, RN, Krista Jackson, phlebotomist, DeMarquez Lloyd, DDS, Yolanda W. Hargrove, LMSW, Shamarika Coco Hill, PhD, Brittany Jackson, RN, Kamika P. Jones, RN, Shelley Maxwell, SW, Delia Tatum Miller, RN, Gladys Morris, CNA, Kenyetta M. Payne, LPN, Jarita Pryor, LPN, Melissa Walker Rayford, PhD, Darlene K. Reynolds, anesthesiologist assistant, Angelisa W. Strahan, LMSW, Summer Warren, LMSW, Shirley Melton White, LPN, Marcel Wilt, CNA, retired. From Marion area, we have Kimberly Dizer Andrews, RN, Tiffany Doty Andrews, LPN, Takala Bass, CNA, Takia Boyette, SW, Paige Crow, PT, Diamond Davis, PTA, Shawana Davis, CNA, LaKendra Ferguson, SW, Mayfield, CNA, Trinika Fields, LPN, Brandy Gilliam, SW, Shayla Fields, Green, RN, Tiffany Hendricks, CNA, Latija Horton, CNA, Alice Kelly, APN, LPN, Roger Kelly, PA, Kenesha Mason, CNA, Linda Montgomery, CNA, Steve Richard, SW, Latoisha T. Ross, SW, Candace Crow-Smith, RN, Antoria Taylor, LPN, Orel Trailer, LPN, Vicky Trailer, CNA, Victoria Trailer, CNA, Charity Ward, CNA, Cordarius Wayne, CAT, Delphine Roach Williams, RN, and Patricia Williams, CNA. Now could you please join us in a round of applause to honor our healthcare.
We do want to apologize. If we forgot anyone's name, it certainly was not intentional that happened. And speaking of that, I do have someone else to mention. Audria Gatson Campbell, RN, with the taking pictures over there. We did not include her in If your name was called, including our panelists, would you please stand? Thank you all very much. At this time, we do have a little bit of time, so I would like to open the floor up to questions. If you have a question, can I see your hand? Yes, ma'am. And who is your question for?
Michael.
Michael. Okay, Michael.
You didn't address it when you were talking, but I do know that you have a career in the military as well. I was just wondering what made you pursue that in addition to what you're doing.
Okay. In addition to what I'm doing full-time, I thought I wasn't helping enough people, so I wanted to reach more people, so I decided to join the military so I can have more access to veterans and service members.
Next question? Yes, Charles. Who's your question for?
Well, actually, it could be for anybody.
Okay.
Anyone who wants to answer it. But was there any single individual who really encouraged you or stimulated you to go into this particular field that you're in now?
Okay, this is open to everyone. Was there one particular person that inspired you to go into your particular field of medicine?
I owe everything to my mom. She was just that cheek, you know.
For me, it's so many different people at different stages, but I would say in grad school, when I was working on my master's, I had a professor named Dr. Tatum. She sat me down and she told me that you need to continue on and get your PhD. And I was just like, I'm about to get this license and I'm about to make this work. She said, a black man with a PhD is like having a black card. She was like, you need to get it. And so I would say that she was instrumental in me getting my PhD.
Think of anybody in particular, but I think to go to medical school and to it's such a study intensive and labor intensive in terms of education. I think it was probably the teachers in Farmerville, those elementary school teachers, because they that the love of studying, the love of seeking knowledge. I mean, I think I learned that, just from the teachers I got in Farmerville, from, like I said, Miss Jonikin. I mean, she stands out of my mind because she just, she made you study, she made you want to study. And I think with medical school, it's just a matter of studying. You have to study. And that love of studying, love of just getting knowledge, I think it just started right here. But there was no one, for me, medical school wasn't something that I wanted to, I wanted to be a doctor. It was just something that sort of fell in my lap. I had people who were going to medical school at the time who encouraged me to do it, but I can't say there was any time in my life when I could say that early on that I wanted to be a doctor. But studying came natural for me because I had been encouraged to do it as a young child. So.
As I mentioned when I was introducing myself, I didn't have that visual of seeing a black doctor or a black dentist when I was growing up, so I can't say that any one person inspired me either. But if I had to choose someone, I would say it would be Dr. Melissa Walker Rayford, because I knew her all my life growing up, and I feel like all my life she was in school. And I remember my mom sent me and my aunt, they sent us to San Antonio for a summer to be with her, and I think she was teaching grad school or something at the time, and so she exposed us to a lab, an anatomy lab, where they were dissecting cats, and so I was curious about that, and then it kind of just, kept going, and so she was very instrumental, even when I was younger, in teaching me about healthcare and kind of showing me the ropes, that sort of thing. So.
I guess I feel the same way also. It's just been like different people at different phases in my life, from my family, my aunts, my mom, my sister, from daycare, Miss Davis, Miss Crawford, like, you know, I would say elementary school, middle school, Miss Gatson, Miss Deborah James. I will say this, my last year in high school, Farmerville really wasn't very challenging for me as a student in high school, and so I would say stuff like, because I mean, even like the chemistry class, we would go there and like watch movies. So I would be like, I'm not wasting my time going to school just to watch movies. I'm gonna stay at home. But Miss Deborah James was turning that roll in, so I made sure I would get up and go to her class, and then I would go back home. And so she would be like, you know, were you at school this morning? Yes, ma'am. I've been here all day. Also, Miss Johnson, I don't see her here today. She taught me Spanish. She was always pushing me, you know, like, I was kind of a rebellious kid. I remember arguing or doing something in the hallway, and vice principal at the time asked me my name, and I was like, Ashley Lawson, and she was like, the 4.0 student Ashley Lawson? And I was like, yeah. You know, so like, everybody I feel like in the community kind of had a hand in helping mold me, because I could have been doing anything else, you know. I could have been in trouble, I could have been in jail, I could have been doing a lot of other things, but everybody kind of took a hand. They would call my parents and say, you know, oh, you know, I saw Ashley doing this, or whatever, or Miss Crawford would just spank me at school, you know. So, yeah, it was a lot of people that kind of helped mold me to who I am today.
Took time for one more question. Yes.
Dr. Lloyd.
Okay.
Is there a family discount?
Talk to me.
Yeah, I tell you, between this whole crew, we would be pretty set. Well, in closing, I'd like to invite Reverend Lester Sims up to the podium. I don't know if any of you came last year, but last year we honored African Americans in time of war, and we had a closing prayer for our soldiers and their families, and the many people that put their lives on the line and sacrificed for us. But you know, our healthcare professionals are lifesavers. Every day they make decisions that impact the lives of others. So at this time, I'd like for Reverend Sims to basically pray for all of our healthcare heroes and the work that they do. And immediately following the prayer, we would like for our podium guest to exit first, because Miss Holly has something planned for y'all in the meeting room at the reception. But we'd like to invite everyone to stay following the prayer and go into our meeting room. We have a cake with all your faces on it. You ever had a cake with your face on it? And join us for our reception following the program. And also Michael will be in there with his books, providing his books and signing them as well. So, Reverend Senator.
First I asked was this, what kind of prayer was this? Dedication prayer. Dedication is a speech of praise, and each one of them deserve some praise for them being dedicated and committed. Before I close the prayer, I literally counted 129 of our heroes, our health heroes, on this list right here, and only one was deceased. That speaks a lot in volume. And I literally counted it twice because I know somebody is going to say Pastor Sin didn't count this right. So I made sure that it was 129 on there. Let us pray. Oh, eternal God, as we come down, Father, we come thanking you, God, for another day. We thank you, God, for you being who you are and doing what you do. We thank you, God, for these health heroes, God, that you have placed in our community. We dedicate, God, them to you, Father, as you have been with them, Father. We pray now, God, that you continue to watch over all of them, Father. Not just the ones, Father, that had the privilege to speak today, God, but those that is out, Father, helping other people, God, help themselves. We just thank you now, Master, that you continue to drive in this community. We thank you, God. We dedicate them to this library, Father. I pray right now, God, that you continue to guide them and watch over them, Father, and continue to give them vision, Father, as every year they come with this Black History program, Father, and every year it has been totally off the hook, God. We just thank you right now, God, for all you've done through them, Father, for them, Father, that they be uplifted into our community. Thank you for the leadership of this library, Father, and Lord, those who is dedicated, Father, to continue our education, Father, and back us up into our community. Now we ask, Father, that you would bless, Father, the food in the backyard, if there be any, Father, let it be nourishment to our body and sanctify it. Bless the hands that prepared it. In Jesus' name, we ask you for grace to travel. Amen.
Amen.